What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back to the Mosh Pit Reviews, where yours truly, Thrash Maniac 99, reviews metal albums in the calendar year of 2019. Now, for this one, this weekend only had two releases that caught my eye, but this was definitely the bigger one of the two, and I am reviewing the first album in 26 years from Arizona thrash legends Sacred Reich, and the album is entitled Awakening. So, a little brief history lesson about Sacred Reich for those who may not be aware. Sacred Reich was a thrash metal band that formed in the mid-80s out of Arizona, which is typically a place in the world of metal that you don't really think about where a lot of bands come from. There was really, in my mind, in the 80s, at least three thrash bands that came out of that state. Flotsam and Jetsam, Sacred Reich, and Atrophy. Of course, Flotsam and Jetsam was the more famous of the three, mostly because that was Jason Newsted's first big band before he went on into Metallica. But Sacred Reich was definitely no slouch. You listen to their first two releases, Ignorance and the EP Surf Nicaragua, top-tier thrash metal for the late 80s time. Especially that album, Ignorance. It was kind of like if you combined Metallica, Slayer, and Agnostic Front and Cro-Mags and put them all into a blender. Like, you get the vocal approach of the New York hardcore bands, as well as the lyrical themes of New York hardcore, mixing it with the music and songwriting approach of bands like Metallica and Slayer. Then after that, they put out a few albums afterwards, like The American Way, and then a couple of groove metal-oriented albums, such as Independent and Heal, in which Heal was the last major album that they had up until now. So the first album in over 20 years for Sacred Reich came out yesterday with Awakening. So, before I get into the actual review, there were a couple of singles off of the album, which I will touch on now with the review. First, the title track kicks off the album, and this song, the title track, Awakening, I remember when I first heard it came out on YouTube thanks to Metal Blade, and I forgot to mention this band was a staple on Metal Blade Records, and they're back on Metal Blade for this album. And the title track, the opening track, Awakening, was a very, very strong opening track and a strong single to get people pumped up for the new album. I was really excited when I heard this song. It's a thrasher with a breakdown riff that was really cool. Phil Wren's vocal styles really changed from the last time that I heard anything from Sacred Reich. Phil Wren definitely having a little bit of like a higher tone to his voice, trying to showcase his range a little bit. Then you get to the second track, Divide and Conquer, which a lot of people would cite as the strongest of the album. I would say perhaps second strongest behind the title track. It was just so hard to top the title track, in my opinion. But Divide and Conquer, another great thrasher with a fun, catchy chorus. That's actually a big theme with this album, is that there's some catchy choruses on this album, and we'll get to some of those as we go along. But Divide and Conquer, a great follow-up to the title track, but just not as good in my opinion, but still a strong tune. Salvation, kind of more mid-tempo. I wouldn't call it a groove metal song because, to me, when people think of like mid-tempo heavy metal stuff, they always think, oh, it's groove metal. I don't really agree with that. To me, this track, Salvation, is more of a traditional heavy metal song that I could compare to the album Heavy Metal Music by Jason Newsted, his band Newsted, which, by the way, if you guys haven't heard that album, you should check it out. It was a great album in 2013. To me, this album was sort of reminding me of that Newsted album with some of the tropes it was using, some of the catchy choruses, the riff ideas were kind of not basing off of, but sounded similar to what I heard from Newsted's band back in 2013. And Salvation was a perfect example of that. Not a bad song by any means, in fact it's a really good tune, but it just couldn't hold a candle to Divide and Conquer and Awakening. Manifest Reality, which was the second single of the album, and in fact it's the second longest song of the album at 4 minutes 45 seconds. I did like the introduction that had kind of Metallica-centric, like, build-up intro before it got into, like a chugging gallop riff with, like, a drum beat that reminded me of the song Hell Awaits by Slayer. And I do like those kind of build-up moments to songs, but then after that, it's another thrash tune, but to me, it kind of felt stale, and it just didn't go many places. Plus, I thought Phil's vocals in the chorus when he sings Manifest Reality felt a little weak in my personal opinion. So this was definitely one of the weaker moments of the album, in my personal opinion. Killing Machine, which is sort of back to being more of like a traditional metal, but with some... Wow, I had a lisp right there. With some punk flavoring to it. Not quite thrash, but a little punk flavoring on top of like a traditional metal sense. Maybe a speed metal song, I think, would be appropriate to call this. And this was a good one for me. This was probably my second or third favorite song on the album. Catchy and fun, and I liked it. Death Valley, which was the longest song of the album at over 5 minutes, almost 5.5 minutes. Now, I watched one review prior to recording saying that this felt more like a southern rock tune. I could kind of get that, but I also go back to that comparison point I'm using with the Newstead Heavy Metal Music album. It kind of falls into that line of trying to experiment, but in this case it just felt like experimenting for the sake of having variety, but not for the right reasons. So yeah, this album... Or not this album. I haven't gotten to my overall thoughts on the album yet. This song, rather, did kind of feel a little bit forced. Not a terrible song by any stretch of the imagination, but definitely one of the weaker songs of the album for sure. Revolution, which was under 3 minutes, it was kind of a filler thrash song. And then you get to the title track, not the title track, the final track, Something to Believe, which... I agree with the review I watched before that. It just kind of felt like it was like a radio song for back then, but not now. So yeah, the second half of the album, apart from Killing Machine, really made this album kind of fall flat. The first half, apart from Manifest Reality, it's almost like as if Killing Machine and Manifest Reality should have swapped. And if that would have been the case... This album would have been a definite tale of two halves, where he had such a strong first half with, like, thrash tunes and even some speed or traditional metal flavorings on top. And then if Manifest Reality was track 5 instead of Killing Machine, and then it just went on from there. I give the band credit for trying to experiment, but I felt like they did it for the wrong reasons, almost like as if let's just have variety just for the sake of variety. You know, Manifest Reality kind of feeling like a bit of a simplified thrash song. Death Valley kind of feeling like a, kind of in kin with, and I agree with a point someone brought up in a different review, that it reminded you of more of Texas Hippie Coalition, which is more of like a southern metal thing. Revolution being kind of a filler song, and then Something to Believe was kind of a track that fell flat on its face, in my opinion. Granted, none of these songs on the second half are bad, they're just not that great. And for that reason, the album definitely suffers for that. You had such a strong first 3 tracks, Awakening, Divide and Conquer, and Salvation, and even track 5, Killing Machine, was good. But Manifest Reality, Death Valley, Revolution, and Something to Believe definitely didn't help this album out very much. And so for that reason, I'm going to give this album a 25 out of 40. Once you listen to Awakening, Divide and Conquer, Salvation, and Killing Machine, that's pretty much all you really need to care for with this album, because everything else kind of felt a little bland and also a little forced. Like, this was the long-awaited return, and to me, it was a bit of a disappointment. After being so excited for that first single, the title track, it just... after that, it just didn't hold up in my mind. So what do you guys think of Awakening by Sacred Reich? Let me know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Next week, probably gonna do Tool, more likely, so Tool review coming next weekend. Thank you guys for watching, peace out, and I will see you soon. Hope I'm not dead by then. Oh boy. Oh god, I could really use some good quality entertainment, but all I got's $40. So, what the hell am I going to do? Okay, let's see what we got to drink. Ah, fucking perfect. Ah, some good old Powerade. Delicious. No, not really. Damn it, we don't even have Spam in here!